Welcome to Reputation Revolution. This is the podcast where we help individuals like you to establish your voice in the marketplace, enhance the credibility of that voice, extend the reach of your story and your message, and finally, extract value from your efforts in building a meaningful personal brand that's both recognized and respected. Now, on with the show.
Welcome back to the Reputation Revolution show. My name is Trevor Young, and today we're going to get all into the big meaty topic of why business leaders should be building their personal brand, why they should be creating content, why they should be on social media. And to discuss it with me is someone who's actually doing it right at this point and going through that journey. His name is Adam Robinson. He's the CEO and founder of retention.com. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Adam, why don't you give us a little bit of a thumbnail sketch? You're a startup entrepreneur, a veteran startup entrepreneur, and you're building your company in public, which is going to we'll roll out that story. But let us in on a little bit of your story.
Sure. So this is my second startup. It's called retention.com. It's a SaaS product, and we sell into direct-to-consumer e-commerce stores, mostly big Shopify stores. And what we do is our product, the fundamental technology is identity. So in the US, an anonymous visitor can hit Dr. Squash's website or like Warby Parker's website, and we'll be able to tell Warby Parker an email address of that person. And then they can start contacting them in any number of ways based on either behavior or just, straight up retargeting in newsletters or whatever. And yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm building in public, so you can find this out. We're at 20 million annual recurring revenues, been around for 3.5 years. We're bootstrapped, we're profitable. We have 50 employees, and that is the state of my company.
So obviously when you've got a business brand, you've got to be promoting the business brand, but you're a believer in the personal brand in alignment or adjacent to building that at the same time. How much effort is going in, with you? I mean, clearly you've probably got a marketing team, but how much effort from you are you putting into the business brand versus the personal brand, and how are you managing to juggle that?
Sure. Can we talk about the why first?
Sure.
I think it's a really interesting discussion, and the trajectory of my journey involves the why. My last business was like a lifestyle business, very much. Like I could kind of pay for anything that I wanted to do. It was never going to be a large company. This current business started as a feature in that lifestyle business, and people wanted to use the feature and not the rest of the app. So we spun it out. And at the time, I thought it was going to be just like the best lifestyle business ever. So, I thought it would, if that makes sense. Like I was in no way attempting to create a category defining 800-pound gorilla unicorn SaaS company, right? Before that was my goal, which all of those words that I just said, I don't think I would have necessarily felt that it was worth it for me to spend a lot of time and money building personal brand. The product wasn't quite right. We didn't know who our ideal customer profile was. We were by no means trying to go as big as possible. And I wasn't on social media at all in my personal life, which was actually one of my apprehensions before I started doing this. And so I want to tell you, but basically the first thing I want to say is what ultimately made me overcome this. I'll tell you the three things that happened. One, when we were at 6 million ARR, I was at this mastermind, and this guy named John Cronstedt was sitting on stage, who was president of this company called Kajabi, which is like the Shopify for info products. And he was president from when they were 6 million ARR to 100 million ARR. And they did this big round with Tiger, and he exited a rich man, right? So this guy asked him on stage, he's like, if somebody were about to do what you did and scale hard from 6 million up, what is the one thing you tell him to do? And he said, I would tell him to start writing on LinkedIn what it's like to work in your company every single day. I didn't think much of it, but I was like, that's a very interesting one thing.
Mm.
You know, and then I had him on my podcast and I asked him about it. And he's basically like, here's my view. Recruiting is so hard if you have to push. But if you can create the equivalent of Yellowstone, the show that everybody watched in the US with John, you know, he's like, John Dutton does not have his mission, vision, values on the wall. If you watch 3 seasons of Yellowstone, you know what it is like to work on John Dutton's ranch as a cowboy, right?
Yeah.
So that was his idea. He's like, if you can, you know, send an information stream out about you and your company, you will have people raising their hands to show up to work for you. And he's like, I think that it solves this like disillusionment problem with the workforce today. Like if people are opting in, then you're just going to have a lot better luck with your employees. So that was number one. Number two, I talked to this guy, Patrick Campbell, who has a company called ProfitWell, which is neither here nor there. He sold it for $200 million, but they have this like dashboard that all companies like me, SaaS companies, use, and it's free. And he had a good personal brand presence on LinkedIn. He's like, I wouldn't mess around with it. I just asked him because I was curious. He's like, I wouldn't mess around with it if you weren't trying to like win a category. But if you were, it's an incredibly valuable tool. And he's like, if you want to know why, this guy, Dave Gerhardt, articulates it very well in his book called Founder Brand. So write that down, go buy it.
Yep.
Go read it. Excellent book. I mean, just perfectly articulates why you would do this, right? And somehow, but mostly why. Now, I'm still to the point where I haven't decided I'm really going to go for it, but all of this is kind of marinating as a possibility in my head someday. But the major thing I had to overcome is, how am I supposed to create content for platforms that I don't consume myself? This is like one of those things where I know what I'm good at this point. I've been an entrepreneur for 11 years. I had another career as a credit default swap trader. Like, I know the things that I am good at. I am so much better than people who have zero experience. And I know what I suck at by this point. I'm 42 years old. Like, you know, I'm unflexible, right? I'm never going to be a good yogi, right? Like, there's just things that I know that I am terrible at. The idea that I would go and compete with the LeBron James of Twitter, right? Or whoever the Messi of Twitter, to put it in a football reference, right? Was so absurd to me. I'm like, there is absolutely no way you're going to get me in front of a keyboard attempting to tweet against these people who've been doing it for 20 years. Like, I'm not fucking doing it. So finally, a bunch of factors came together, and I decided that this was going to go from being a lifestyle business to trying to be a unicorn. And then the goal was, what is the quickest way to create awareness for anything in the world? And I believe that digitally, it's these social media platforms. And this one statement I totally agree with. People are on social media platforms to connect with people and not brands.
Yes.
Period. Right. They do not want to connect with retention.com. They want to know the story of Adam Robinson and his life and how it is playing out, like, in everything that he's doing. So I was still unwilling to try without expert help. So these guys at this company called Triple Whale, which sell into the same ecosystem that we do, something totally different, non-competitive, their head of social was like, I can write LinkedIn for you. And, you know, here's vaguely, you know, kind of big picture the strategy, right? And he sort of explained it. We'd go, I'm like, I don't mind doing this work in public thing and being incredibly revealing about financials and everything else because we have no competitors. I mean, a few have popped up ever since I've been doing this, but like, I just feel like I'm willing to be more transparent than anybody else, basically. And I felt like I'd seen that resonate before really well, especially if you're crushing it. Like, you know, it's kind of one of these things. It's like, it's shocking that we're saying it, but it's more shocking how well we were doing. So this guy, he's like, I can do it for you. Another thing that I bought in on, which is this very moment, you know, call it, well, at the time it was the fall of 22, but now it's the spring of 23. Still, there is a short supply of content creators on LinkedIn. the content creator market for Twitter is very saturated and it's very balanced between consuming and creating. Only 1% of active users of LinkedIn actually create content.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
So, right. So it's like the combination of me wanting to go for it, me having these guys saying, you know, effectively, we know how to arbitrage the algorithm and we'll show you how. So we will grow an audience for you in a way that an expert would, right? And me wanting to go for it, I decided to do it. My objectives, I declared as, so I think when you start really trying to go for it, the challenge that you face becomes, I need to hire better and better people for this journey because they are what's going to grow my company, right? It's not me coming up with products. It's like the better your team gets, the better. So it's like number one goal was this goal that this guy on stage described, which was, you know, if you do this, then it will create this pull mechanism for recruiting, which to a large extent it has. I mean, the economy is helping us a little bit, and the nature of SaaS companies laying people off. But like, I'm blown away by the people that just show up and say, "Dude, I want to work for you." Like, can't believe it. There's no way it would be happening had I not been doing this. Number two, we were bootstrapped, but I am considering the possibility of doing a large secondary at some point later in the year, maybe next year. So there's investors, which I thought, you know, if you created this machine, which was an automatic trust builder, and you had these people following you over the course of years, the work has been done, right? If you sort of deliver what you said you were going to deliver, like you have these guys competing for the deal, which is great. And then ecosystem, like there's brands and agencies in this ecosystem that we're selling to, and it's kind of a distant third. I was hoping that it would sort of trickle down to them. And like, look, I think how I'm doing it, I also believe in the power of video. I just think it's the most incredible thing that you can record something once, and you're going to record something every day.
Yep.
And you can get people to watch you. Like, I think it is hypnotic, almost irrespective of what a head is saying. If you watch someone every day say even somewhat intelligent things.
Yep.
Right. Like it just hypnotizes people. So, but this was unproven for me. And people were not advising me to do this by any means, but I was like, I'm going to see if I can create a daily video series, and it turned into these like 3 to 5 minute videos of me just like spouting off lessons that I have learned or am learning, and things I screwed up and things we did well and like all that stuff. And then the most ambitious thing was I was like, it's like this notion that like all of a sudden I woke up and I'm like, well, I think we could be $1 billion company like quickly. Like, the product worked and like the market was big enough or whatever. And I was like, I'm going to make it. I asked one of my buddies who started a media company in New York called Thrillist, like back when he was 20 years old. He's 42. It was like, it's this big media property now. And I was like, what if I made a show that was a weekly docuseries, 10 minutes long each episode, about me trying to create a $1 billion startup over the course of a year? Do you think that would be interesting? He's like, I think it'd be unbelievable. And like, I got the girl to do it for you. Like, she's great, director, showrunner, like whatever. So I'm making this weekly docuseries also, like in addition to all this. So my point is, this is like 0 to infinity in like, I'm not saying do all of this stuff, but like, I'm so deeply in it at this point, and I cannot tell you how it is opening doors that I didn't know existed before. So, you know what I mean?
So so how long have you been on? So you may have been on LinkedIn before, but taking it seriously.
I really wasn't.
So I
didn't log in. I didn't log into these things before.
So how long ago was it when you started on LinkedIn? You're up to about 21,000 followers.
Yeah, October 1st.
2022?
Yeah.
So you've, as we do this, we're in May 2023. So in that very short period of, what's that, 7 months or whatever, don't hit up on the maths, but you've amassed 21,000 followers. So that gives us a little bit of context.
And like that's not incredible, but for what I'm doing, it's not like I'm taking viral stuff and then like getting viral people to boot, right? There's like ways that
you're not gaming the system. I mean,
yeah,
people who are really building big numbers, you know, a lot of them are they're often talking about what to do on LinkedIn, you know. So
yeah, it's a content factory, right? Like I'm actually sitting there and talking into the camera every day, and it's doing that, right? So so it's interesting. It's
So you know, I think 21,000 is very, very good in that short space of time.
Right.
So don't undersell yourself on that.
And the show just came out, and it's got 20 times the engagement of anything else I've done before. So I think that the subscriber count is going to go much higher.
So you started, obviously, I know you went into video. Were you doing just copy written first? And how did that work? And then at which point did you say, no, I'm doing video?
So that was a really long answer to your question of how much time do you spend on this versus your basically marketing efforts of the normal company and your normal job. So we don't do a ton of marketing of our normal company. It's basically done through trade shows and events.
Yep.
And we have an agency partnerships team, which is very well networked, these people that we hired. And so like they get around the country and it spreads the word. And then it's my founder brand that is marketing our company. And so some of the criticism that I get, which I'm trying to work on in this next phase, is everyone knows who you are, but no one knows what you guys do.
Yep.
Which is interesting because all I've been talking about is me actually building the business and not the problems we're solving for our customers or even necessarily who the customers are. It's basically my emotional journey through all of this and lessons I've learned, which I've chronicled. So I think that's a tweak, but interesting. But my whole thing was like, you know, I had a lot of free cash when I started this. We've unfortunately hired a ton of people and it has since vanished. But I was like, I really don't care if I pay a lot of money stringing together people to help me produce this. I need to get it to where I'm not spending more than one morning a week doing this. So I managed to come up with this system where, you know, I would basically, this guy sent me this format for my videos, which I was using, which was pretty good to get me here. It was hook, story, 3 lessons, soft CTA, summary, right? So as the week went on, I had this spreadsheet and I'd write my hooks. And then I'd go back on a Saturday or Sunday and sit down for 45 minutes and actually write the stories down with the lessons. And then I have a teleprompter in front of this camera. So I just put the story on a PowerPoint slide and flip it, put it on the teleprompter, and then I can record 5 of these in 30 minutes, right? Like, I mean, it's, you know, and then the docuseries, the only time it takes from me is like 1 confessional interview a week, and then the guy follows me around when I travel. So that's what, you know what I mean? It's not terribly invasive. If someone were to look at my LinkedIn, they would be like, this guy makes content and that's the only thing that he does. Because it's like 2 posts a day, it's video, it's this show, you know, it's like you would be like, he must constantly be behind camera. But it was very important to me that this only took like, you know, 15% of my time or something. So it is that. Like, if you look at my calendar, I'm not going to unplug this and like it's just, it looks like any other dude who does what I do. It's like there's Monday mornings blocked off, and then it's just like Zoom calls, internal and external meetings. Like, and then once a week, once a month I travel, and it's like gone for a week. So
with this, in terms of that, so it started off with some text, and then you've quickly got into video. You've got the video, and this is the critical thing. You've got the video down into a bit of a machine, and you punching out one of those a day. Is that what you said?
Yeah, one of them a day.
About one of them a day.
Yeah.
And with the docu-series, I've seen the trailer, and I think the thing is, the full thing's going to just about drop. And I haven't seen
it dropped like today, or, you know.
Yeah, so we should have done this tomorrow so I can get back to see it. But so that I urge people to go and see that. And I think that's, you know, this is where the bar is being lifted in terms of, you know, being able to be more creative than anyone else. So not only is there such a small percentage of people on LinkedIn who are actually creating content, The ones that are virtually no one is really taking it up to that next level.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to. This is just, we were in a very strong position when I made the decision to do all this stuff.
Yep.
It would have been incredibly, I don't think I would have been able to convince our finance person, given the position we're in right now, to waste to spend the type of money that it took to get this off the ground and keep it going.
But it's really the thinking behind it, going more creative, being more open, behind the scenes, taking people behind the velvet rope of your business. We know that works. We really know it works. This is just a different type of execution. And yes, you're doing it with proper production, but there's no reason why the same sentiment can't be done with your own iPhone. Or, I've seen people going through airports and they're on the way to a speaking gig and they're talking as they're doing it. And this is why I'm, and they're behind the scenes, and they've just taken delivery of a new boardroom table. I mean, it's still the same thinking, the creativity and in the now.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you can get started with ghostwriters. Mine's name is Tommy Clark. Amazing. I mean, I'm switching strategies to go, like, I wouldn't even know, had I not done this for 6 months, that I was yearning for something a little bit different. Like, I would say find someone to get you started. Do something for 6 months. I think LinkedIn's a great platform if you have goals similar to what mine were, right? Like recruiting, investors or ecosystem or whatever. And there are people that are good at this. Tommy's great. There's this guy, Houston Golden, I think his name is, who's also an agency that, they'll help you think through what you should be talking about. You can feed them ideas or not in many cases, and they can get the ball rolling, right? It may not be 20,000 followers in 6 months or whatever, but I think they can get you started, and it will give you an idea as to whether or not you want to go harder or not. Every indication that I got back, and part of it was because it was the absurdity of what I was saying, was that this is the best thing I could be doing, and I just been looking for ways to just increase the effectiveness and reach without increasing the amount of time that I'm spending on it. So I think, the next step is just get a lot smarter and more intentional about, each post or whatever.
And of course, when if you do a docuseries or whatever you do, a longer form content, you can strip out the interesting parts of it, and that everything leads back to that, and then it goes up on YouTube, and you put snippets up on Twitter, and so you're a bit of a convert now to Twitter, and I mean, given you're in a lot of your, I guess, cohort and ecosystem and people that would be on Twitter. It's how have you found going on to Twitter, because it's a completely different beast to LinkedIn, and you've come in at the Elon Musk time.
So like, I've heard rumors that Elon is a video guy and the new CEO that he hired is a video guy. That excites me because I'm doing a lot with video. I still don't think that I have a deep understanding of what I need to be doing on Twitter. We were largely just taking things that I was saying in these videos on LinkedIn and making threads out of them, and that sort of like has built a small following. I think I have 1,800 followers on Twitter, when we started in December or something, but it's been a very half-assed effort, to be totally honest with you. I think that in this next phase, my intention is to be much more intentional about Twitter, and hopefully they'll do better. I mean, there's no question that it is a super valuable platform to be good at, but it's not where we started, because, I was sold on this idea that the real short supply of content was on LinkedIn, and it would still, there are people that would help that I could get in front of on that platform.
So I mean, and this is also, I mean, people often think it's lead sales, lead sales, lead sales, but it's brand, it's reputation, it's leadership. It's I mean, this is classic PR. PR is looking at all your audiences, and your audiences are potential investors, potential referrers, potential recruits. It's not just one size fits all. And I think over time, as your story gets out, of course, the retention.com story has to be in alignment, is adjacent to it anyway. People aren't stupid. They're going to say, what is it you do? Oh, that's interesting. Bang. And all of a sudden it can, and it's more about generating talkability. And and you can't do that from a logo. You've got to do it from a person, and that's what you're doing. You've also got a podcast. Talk me through that. What's it about? Why are you doing a podcast?
So I think similar to a lot of people with a podcast, during that initial conversation of you should start posting on LinkedIn, the guy I was talking to was like, you should also have a podcast. Those two things you should do more than anything else. And I knew nothing about a podcast. I was like, well, who's going to do it all? Like I look at these podcasts and there's like a lot of text. There's links to show notes. And I talked to this other guy who had a podcast, and he's like, there's this group called Pod Post Media, who, you pay them $5,000 a month, and they will produce one hour episode a week for you fully. And it's like beautiful. And if you go to my podcast right now, it's called 10 Years in the Making. I'm actually, as I have learned more about what my podcast should be over the last 6 months of doing it, I have been told that my audience wants very tactical e-commerce tips and tricks, basically. So we're retention.com. I'm changing the name of this podcast. It was called 10 Years in the Making, and I was telling their founder stories, which I love. I think it's like every overnight success is 10 years in the making or whatever. And I loved hearing the backstory of all these people, because if you made it to be a really big Shopify store, direct consumer e-commerce is so hard. Like, you're such a gifted person. I love that. But I think in order to better serve the community that we're trying to engage, it needs to be a more tactical podcast. So it's going to be called Leaky Funnels. I'm trying to get, so it's like, I'm trying to get better at making it clippable, if that makes sense. So yep. The idea is, and this, I sort of got coached into this point, or convinced, or whatever you want to call it. It's like, if you can focus on, there's a guest, and it would be great if the guest had a big audience, but there's a guest, and then there's like a topic that is the title of the show, right? So it's like, using ChatGPT to save time as a CMO by whatever, right? And then throughout, when something was clippable, I could say something that my editor would immediately know to go back and clip whatever that was. If I heard the guy say 1 and then 2 and then 3, it's like, well, that's fucking genius. Every time he heard that, he'd go and clip. So anyway, I am trying to get much more tactical with this podcast to better serve the audience. And I'm trying to interview these guests in a way to where it can be very easily repurposed to short form video.
Yep. So, I mean, I guess when you look at your audience, I mean, you've got that audience there, which is probably a bit more in the weeds, and the other audience is really people running businesses. And I guess to a degree, there's, there's reasons for both, but you'll get more bulk, obviously, with the more tactical stuff, and clearly that's going to work. How do you are you going to keep this podcast as it is and just change the name, or when's all that take place? And so following you for a certain way, and then this is quite a U-turn. It's not an evolution, really.
Yeah. So
what are you doing on that front?
So I would say everything. There were two ways to do it, I think. One is my founder brand remains, it has been largely built in public and nothing else up to this point.
Yeah.
Part of becoming more intentional is providing commentary on direct consumer e-commerce in a reporting manner. So we have people generating ideas for us, and we're making these amazing heavy, very valuable LinkedIn posts that have video accompanying them that will build direct consumer audience more than just founders.
Yes.
Right. So that's part of it. The podcast, I think, does that. It's like if I stayed with 10 years in the making and started interviewing bigger and bigger entrepreneurs, I think retention.com would need a second podcast
Yes.
that served. So since we're not in a position to start 2 media brands before we've nailed one, I'm going to try to make myself a thought leader in D2C, have a D2C podcast that is effectively the retention.com podcast that I host, and do it that way. Like try to have some of the hopefully that will tell this story of what our product does better as well.
Yes.
Rather than just me talking about our metrics and hiring and firing and all that crap,
Well, you're covering that in other avenues and other channels.
Exactly.
And the great thing about a podcast is that you can go, you can be serving an audience elsewhere, and I need this audience, and I can reach this audience through a very specific niched podcast. And as long as there's no disconnect between that and the bigger picture and everything else you're doing, then that makes perfect sense.
Well, good.
Well, it makes perfect sense to me anyway.
Yeah.
In terms of if other people are founders or they're running their own businesses and they're probably on LinkedIn but haven't been really giving it a real crack. What are some of the, I guess, the roadblocks, the things that you had to overcome to start doing this? Because I guess you've gone through a more of a condensed period of overcoming and getting it done and getting it out there, because you've shifted the dial from I don't need this, I'm not on it, to I'm all in.
All in, yeah.
Yeah. And most people, once they get to that point, it's kind of quite an elongated process. So you've shortened that process of getting in and doing it. Is it just simply a case of having a strategy and direction first, and that gave you the confidence just to have a go? Walk us through that.
It was people that I trusted who knew how to do it that told me they would effectively do it for me.
Yep.
And that was like the first 4 to 6 weeks. And then I started wanting to add more and more of my words. And then it eventually became all of my words that were getting repurposed.
Yep.
But that was the hardest thing for me. I said, it was like the LeBron James of Twitter thing. Like, I'm not going to start. An interesting thing happened when I started, and it's what gave me the respect for these people. I had this thing happen where I was at the other vendor that I was telling you about that helped me get over this hurdle. I was at this mastermind. They had their top 50 customers there, and they're perfect customers. Never heard of me or my company. I was supposed to have a fireside chat with this guy who they wanted to hear from. I said what I did, and I got harassed for 45 minutes with questions. Like, the guy didn't even get to speak. It was unbelievable. So I tried to write about this in LinkedIn. It took me 45 minutes. I'm not conditioned to type or whatever. So proud of this post. I thought it was so dope or whatever. It gets 1 comment, 2 comments or whatever. The next day, they post some screenshot of some tweet that's like, the purpose of marketing is to help sales. And this one guy comments on it and it gets 5,000 likes. I was like, okay, you guys know what you're doing. I don't. And granted, that's not what I do now, but it was just enough to make me realize that there are people that really know how this works.
Yep.
So if you can team up with some of them and they can help you get started, I think that's the way to do it. Again, the guy who wrote for me, you could get a ghostwriter. This guy who wrote for me is Tommy Clark. You can just Tommy Clark Agency. He's got Twitter. He's got LinkedIn. I would recommend starting with somebody like that rather than just trying to do it yourself. It's
but you still got
if you watch it being done a little bit or whatever, and it's because they can write like but they just kind of know what a good LinkedIn post looks like. You have no idea until you've been posting on LinkedIn for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing is, though, eventually it's got to be your thoughts. I mean, if you're going to be a thought leader, you got to
Yeah.
there, and you can't outsource that. And I do know a lot of people try to outsource the thinking. It's not actually the doing. I think as long as you're not outsourcing the thinking, and that's the thing, that over a period of time your voice gets stronger and stronger, and you see
Sure.
ideas, and that's kind of the growth phase that's interesting. I mean, I did work with some pretty busy people, and I get 40 minutes with them. I interview them for 35 of those 40 minutes and record it, put it on a transcription, get 3 articles out of it. And those 3 articles go up on their blog, and they go everywhere else, and get used in other magazines and stuff. So it's about using your time well, but you still got to have the smarts. You still got
to. I mean, there's no question about that. I said that there are other people that started with Tommy the same time I did. They haven't seen nearly as prolific growth, but they're not doing what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing something that's quite unique, like this work in public over video, extremely transparent and honest about everything. I'm talking about firing people. I'm showing, like, literally going through my QuickBooks and being like, well, here's how we did in March. Oh, looks like I spent $20K on this webinar. I wonder what that is,
so that the transparency, telling the story, it's the stories that hook people in. But I like the they're about 90 seconds, some of the ones that I saw, about 2 minutes long, the videos, the daily ones. And it's not just the video, but you've got a headline on it, and you're framed up and everything. But it's how are you recording those?
I have I have 2 little offices. I'm at the other one. I have a Sony A7 behind a teleprompter screen.
Yeah,
like I said before. So the story goes behind the teleprompter screen, and I just record on Riverside. Yep. And then the producers take it off Riverside and then make it into LinkedIn friendly and post it on LinkedIn.
Frame it up. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
And it looks really good. It really stands out, and it's very consistent. And that's part of building that that content brand. So let's just thank you for being so open on this. It's fantastic to hear all the behind the scenes, and obviously you do that through your videos as well. So I guess the messaging here is that you can start from nothing because you literally have. It's a matter of getting people to help you learn along the way, improve, all of that sort of stuff. But it's really about doing it. Video is the kicker, has been the kicker for you, albeit you still get
for me
stuff written, and you're doing graduating from just doing face to 2 camera talking head stuff, which you'll probably continue to do, building that into a little docu-series, which is behind the scenes, a little bit more produced. And on the other side, doing and this is about, growing your company. It's not necessarily about the company's products and services, albeit they probably, there's a dotted line back to it. Started the podcast, which was really found the stories, and now pivoting that to be more, as you say, intentional, and something that can be a little bit more from retention.com, but you are the one who's fronting it naturally, and going to be more tactical and a bit more aimed at a certain audience that's going to be relevant, and learning on the go with Twitter. So just getting out amongst it, and you'll learn some stuff there on Twitter, but Twitter's more about the interaction with people as well. I mean, Twitter's a totally different beast to
I have been told that if I really want to do well at it, I need to try to be like the first response to like 10 to 15 people. I don't have time to do that right now, so I think I'm just gonna let happen what's going to happen. So
and so in one word, one sentence, how to get people off their behinds to actually do it. The people sit on the sidelines a lot, and but your stat then around, there's not a lot of creators on LinkedIn. The opportunity's massive there. Just get out and do it, but have a bit of a purpose and strategy about why you're doing it, and I guess some subject matter that you're passionate about.
I think that, so yes, one thing that was said to me there's a guy named Ryan Pineda who is this real estate influencer guy. It's neither here nor there. I worked with his paid ads guy, and his paid ads guy, very early in this, he's like, I think you should build an organic video audience on YouTube. I'm like, what, dude? But this is impossible for me to even try to understand this, right? So he's like, talk to Ryan's organic guy. And Ryan's got a big business. It's like, he's $30-40 million a year info product business. He's large audience. It's a real business like this. And this guy, I'm telling him what I'm doing. I'm like, I have one podcast I'm recording, and I'm doing one work in public video. This is in the very beginning.
Yep.
And basically what I was asking him is, should I go harder at this? And so he's listening to me fumble through this question that I'm not asking directly. And he's like, what I'm hearing you say to me is you're asking if you should commit more to this. And he's like, look, you're making 2 videos. If you just made 3 more, then you would have 1 per day. And then if you had the right staff, they could cut that up and you could be literally everywhere. And he's like, the question that you asked, is it worth it effectively? He's like, I don't know what it's going to do for you, but it will do more than anything else you will ever do for yourself if you do it. And he's like, I've just seen it so many times. Like, if you do this the right way, it will become your job because it will be giving so much more back to you than anything else you spend time on. And you're the only one who can do it. So
that's YouTube you're talking about.
Just doing this the right way, right? So like, this is the shift that I'm doing right now, right?
Yeah.
Like, and by the way, I took that message. I was like, well, I'm going to see if there's 2 parts to it. 1, can I make a video a day? And 2, can I have the right staff to chop it up to be everywhere?
Yeah.
Right. That second part, I think, is representative of the shift that I'm making right now. I've done it for 6 months. I'm going to try on LinkedIn first to be much more intentional about the audience that's getting formed around this content and how I'm actually moving that audience down the funnel, right? Yep. So like that I think is somewhat related to having a big YouTube audience that slowly becomes my life.
Right, gotcha.
Right? If this really starts working, everybody at my company will want me to do more of it. I mean, of course, the salespeople are going to want more leads, like, whatever. So, but I think that it was a really powerful thing to hear. Like, I don't know what it's going to do for you. If you do it and you get the right people around you, it will do more for you than anything else that you could do for yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. Yeah. Intention.
And by the way, I'm not there yet, but just based on what I'm seeing so far, it's totally true. You know what I mean? Like, investors are falling all over themselves to invest in our company right now. Right? Like, if I wanted that, which I may at some point, like, that is a dream scenario to be in. Like, I don't have to explain anything to anybody. They already know. I'm like, go look at you want a data room? Go look at my LinkedIn page. Right? Like, yeah, the recruiting thing is amazing. So yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. It's, kind of like a get off your ass message, but it's like, I am sure that in a year I will be able to say with the same confidence that guy told me. It's like, look, it seems like a long way away right now, but if you do this the right way, it will do more for you than anything else.
Yeah. No,
the world's just set up. The world's just set up that way, right? Like, it's set up for someone who knows how to nail this personal brand stuff to get outsized returns from the system that you're nailing.
And most people are happy to do one thing a week, but it's not the one thing. It's that ecosystem of content that pops up everywhere, and it's not just about repurposing, but it's about owned media first, and then it's about thinking like a publisher and a media company, and being intentional and thinking about your audience and your message, and then you start adding the layers of transparency in and more stories and personal, and so there's so many dots to connect with that, which you're doing in real time, which I love to see. So
I'm trying to figure it out.
Where's the best people? I think you got a newsletter too. You're adding into.
Yeah, I do. I'm actually going to stop doing that. Well, actually, my LinkedIn newsletter. Yeah, you can go to my LinkedIn and subscribe to that. I'm going to stop doing my other newsletter until I really nail this next phase.
Yeah,
and then I might do it again.
Master something, move on, master it, move on, master it. Some people try and do everything at once. You go nuts. Then that's we see that time and time again. So where's the best people? I was going to say best place people. Retention.com is the business website, but obviously LinkedIn. Finding
LinkedIn, my handle's Retention Adam or Adam Robinson, retention.com. And then on Twitter, my handle's Retention Adam.
Yep. Easy to find. Well, thank you very much for unpacking a lot of stuff there for us, Adam.
Trevor, thank you. Your memory is incredible, by the way. Kim, you just did a whole recap of everything that I said. I mean, you really listen. I'm impressed.
I really did. I really did. All righty. Thanks.
The reputation economy is here. The world today needs more genuine, credible experts and leaders to stand up and share their experience, their wisdom, their stories and ideas. Are you in?